Rudy Giuliani in contempt. This afternoon, a federal judge held Rudy Giuliani in contempt for failing to turn over information to those two former Georgia election workers whom he defamed after the 2020 election. They continue to try to collect the $150 million in damages that the court ordered him to pay them. Let's bring in CNN crime and justice correspondent Katelyn Polantz and CNN senior legal analyst Ellie Honig. Katelyn, what happened in court today?
Well, Rudy Giuliani, he got sanctioned. He got held in contempt of court. What that means is he wasn't following the court's orders, and the judge, Louis Liebman in federal court in Manhattan, said he was being willfully uncooperative, so he gets punished. The punishment is that he's not going to be able to argue things he wanted to argue at an upcoming trial. All of this is about a condo that he says he's living in now primarily as his residence in Florida, Palm Beach. It's worth about $3.5 million. Ruby and Shay Moss want access to that condo. They want to take it from him and sell it. He's trying to convince the judge he should be able to keep it. So he's getting dinged on that. But there's other things. He was on the stand in person in Manhattan before the judge on Friday, and then again over video conference today. And he was telling the judge, you know, there were things he hasn't handed over to these women still that he has been told he must under a court order. And he's just getting them now the title to his Mercedes-Benz, a classic car, convertible that he was driving around on election day. And he's just now finding a watch that his grandfather gave him, and he held it up in court on the video conference to show the judge that he finally got it out of a safety deposit box.
And where does the case go from here?
Well, it does head to trial in 10 days, just about the Palm Beach condo and 4 World Series rings from Yankees wins in the 90s and 2000. So they're going to talk about the facts on whether he can keep those things. And then Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, they're going to keep trying to collect all of those other items. They're going to try and find the Joe DiMaggio jersey that Giuliani says he can't find, but it's quite valuable, that he owns. They're going to still try and get access to and sell that $6.5 million New York apartment, the Mercedes-Benz they want to sell off. There are questions here of whether he would face more contempt issues. And even outside of this court in Manhattan, he has a hearing on Friday here in D.C. before a different judge, also related to Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, who want to hold him in contempt for a different thing.
Ellie, do these two women have any chance of collecting any portion at all of the $148 million judgment?
Well, Jake, they surely will recover some portion of it, but sadly, that portion is probably going to be 10% or less of the $150 million or so they're owed. First of all, as Katelyn alluded to, there are a lot of other people who Rudy Giuliani owes money to. Second of all, he just doesn't have enough assets. And even the assets that we're talking about here, the Manhattan home, the Florida home, if you total those up, it's about $10 million, which is less than 10% of the total amount that Ruby Moss and Shay Freeman are owned. So they are pursuing his assets, as is their right, but the reality is they're never going to be made whole.
This is just one case against Rudy Giuliani surrounding his conduct having to do with the 2020 election. Have you ever seen anything like what's happening with Rudy in these legal battles?
I really have not, Jake, and he fully has earned it for himself. It is fitting that this is happening on January 6th because as a result of Rudy Giuliani's behavior before, during, and after January 6, 2021, he's now been found liable for defamation in this case and several others. He's under 2 different criminal indictments. He was named as a co-conspirator in Jack Smith's indictment, and he's lost his law license in every jurisdiction where he used to be able to practice. So it's been a precipitous fall, Jake, from a man who once was quite respected in legal and prosecutorial circles, and now he's become, frankly, a bit of a laughingstock and really a tragic figure of his own making.
And Giuliani in that courthouse where he's having to testify, being held in contempt, that's a courthouse where he was at the ribbon cutting when he was mayor, when they opened that building. There's pictures of him in the lobby. So just this fall from grace sitting there in Manhattan at the defendant's table is so astonishing to see in that courtroom, and quite a situation for Judge Lehman to have to grapple with and decide what to do here.
Yeah. Misty, while we have you, there was a bit of news that just came down, and that is that a federal judge has found Rudy Giuliani in contempt for failing to turn over information to 2 former Georgia election workers that he defamed after the 2020 election. Remember, they're pursuing Giuliani for $150 million in damages. They've had a hard time trying to collect that. Giuliani's had all sorts of issues after he was found liable in court over this. What would be next in the case, Misty?
So right now, yeah, this is an issue about his Palm Beach residence primarily, and whether or not that can be used to satisfy the judgment. And his argument is this is his private residence, and there's laws in Florida that help shield your private residence from being something that would be subject to judgment collection. So that's where this all stems from. This hearing was about all of these documents and information and evidence that he was supposed to turn over to establish whether or not it would qualify under those restrictions as far as collection. And he admitted, Boris, in his contempt hearing that he did fail to turn over evidence and information that he was supposed to and he was ordered to do. He gave excuses, but he said that he didn't do it. And that was really, the nail in the coffin, because at that point, it was almost inevitable we're going to see this contempt finding. This means that additional charges can be added. There's going to be additional financial penalties relating to this. And also now all of that stuff that he needs to turn over has to be done ASAP. So there's a lot of legal repercussions coming down the pike with respect to this contempt hearing that's outside of all of his other legal troubles.